Welcome listeners and viewers to my channel. I'm Volch and I've prepared a mini-series of videos for you about psychology and spirituality, because these are areas I'm interested in, and at the same time I feel that they deserve more of our attention. In addition to my personal view on these topics, this channel offers something unique. My narration won't just be all theory and talk. It will be vividly and practically supplemented with illustrations and animations. We will gradually create a full-fledged spiritual body, thus allowing you to better imagine psychological processes within us. To give you a better idea about the topics within this series, I've created an overview of the individual episodes, which I will present to you at the beginning of each video, so that you can better orient yourself within the series. I will now use this to open up the first section of this series, which is soul and personality. Each topic will have a theoretical and practical part, so today we will start with the theoretical part of our first episode. But don't worry, even the theoretical part, which is today's one, will still be quite practical and illustrative. So let's dive into the first episode, which will primarily serve as a background for understanding all other topics on this channel. At the same time, however, in this episode, we will encounter the main idea and concept for the first time. That is, my insight into what creates us as a spiritual beings, what nature these parts of us have, and what the relationship is between them. Because the human being is complicated and complex and is difficult to understand complicated topics and systems, we must specify and analyze ourselves as spiritual beings in greater detail. The basis for all the following analysis on this channel will be the division of the spiritual existence into two parts, or rather two layers. The first layer is our soul, which I perceive as our deeper essence. And since we'll be using various graphics and animations to help interpret my ideas, the soul will be depicted like this. And since I'll be referring to the first layer as the deeper one, the second layer will naturally be a little more superficial. More superficial because it is formed based on impulses from the deeper layer, and also because it is something that we consciously or unconsciously build. So it grows from our deeper nature, and we are able to influence the development of this more superficial part. This is contrary to the deeper layer, which we cannot influence, which we can only manifest. And we will illustrate it like this. Each element will symbolize one specific personality aspect, and in general, all the elements will symbolize our overall personality. Our personality has its roots in the soul, from which it grows like a tree grows out of the ground. Then it develops in some way, and finally acquires a specific nature and character. We will usually call this more superficial layer the personality, but in different contexts, I will also attribute other terms to it. For example, persona, self, or ego. So that concludes the theory. Now let's take a closer look at our soul and personality. We will explain this using time. We are all small children once, although we might not remember it completely. As children, we are full of life and various feelings, the source of which is our soul. As small children, obviously, we have no built-up personality. We are pure souls, which means that we have no regulatory ability to influence our inner experiences and outward behavior. As pure souls, we are fully authentic, which means that we immediately express every feeling and emotion outwardly. And so the first interactions with our surroundings occur, usually with our primary caregivers, usually our parents. And for example, if parents react to this emotion with some form of non-acceptance, we are forced to create a certain protective layer. And this protective layer is our personality. As we grow, Our personality is formed over time based on interactions with our surroundings. The layer of personality gradually becomes more complex. Every experience of the soul at the same time forms our personality and provides stimuli to our personality in terms of direction, intensity, and character of our growth and development. Every situation and experience that we encounter in life creates a reaction of our soul, which in some way then creates or develops a certain personality aspect. The stronger the situation that the soul experiences or is touched by, the stronger the layer of personality we will create. And during every such interaction, our personality is created and formed. The fundamental and most important reason for the creation of the personality is the difficult and impossible functioning of the soul itself in this world. We can perceive the personality as a kind of buffer for the soul in contact with its surroundings in this physical world, and at the same time as a regulatory aspect of the soul's authentic reactions to its outward surroundings. In the next phase of life, let's say adulthood, we've reached a state where we have largely formed our personality. The personality layer is already strong enough that we are able to repel or regulate strong external influences that no longer affect our soul in full force, and therefore do not cause such strong feelings and experiences. What we call personality fulfills many tasks, but one of the main goals of the entire process of personality formation is that in the event that the same challenging event is repeated, a person does not experience such a strong reaction of the soul, and measures are taken in the personality layer to either avoid the situation or create some kind of defense. Therefore, personality formation in many cases goes against our nature. A sensitive person creates a personality of insensitive person who masks his sensitivity in humor, for example, or ostensible toughness. Or, for example, we all know women who at first glance seem strong, self-confident, indomitable, and bold. However, I am strongly convinced that this is simply a build-up personality mask. In their essence, they are on the contrary very sensitive, fragile, perhaps irresolute, and are afraid to open up. Because strong sensitivity and perceptiveness in the real world is in fact hard to manage without corresponding protection, and therefore we are able to create a strong personality and disconnect from our nature, our soul. The problem can then intensify by the degree to which we identified with the personality created in such a manner. If we lose contact with our deeper essence, we are not left with many other options of what to identify with. We feel and sense only our built-up personality, and therefore we identify with it. The relationship between the soul and personality is, in my opinion, absolutely crucial to understanding a human being from a psychological perspective, which is why we will also independently explore these two psychological attributes. The basic definition of the soul is our deeper essence, which is full of pure human feelings and experiences. So whatever we feel, whatever evokes emotions in us, comes from the soul. On the contrary, the basic definition of personality is the more superficial part of us that we ourselves create and shape consciously or unconsciously in this world. And this layer of our spiritual existence contains learned and developed abilities, attitudes, beliefs, opinions, behavioral patterns, habits, or faith, for example. Now I will give you an example of why I've been talking about the soul and personality for so long. You may have noticed that some people are much more sensitive and experience everything more strongly than others. This is more usually the case with the female half of our population. Men, on the other hand, are usually equipped with the ability to regulate or repel external influences and build a certain defense against them. And this is precisely due to the fact that we are able to build a stronger layer of personality. A typical example is how men are able to suppress authentic expressions, such as crying. Historically, women have not been forced to suppress these expressions as much as men, who had to build the ability to suppress it in order not to show their weakness. Men have therefore developed the attitude that crying belongs only to the female world, and so we created a personality mask of tough guy who doesn't cry. But every man has wanted to cry at least once in his life, but has suppressed this natural expression with the personality aspect he has created. So if I relate this to my theory, sadness is a feeling at the level of the soul. Crying is its manifestation. And a belief and attitude have built up the personality element of tough guy's nature, which provides the ability to suppress authentic expressions and show a certain mask on the outside. However, a significant part of our personality is formed unconsciously from suppressed experiences. And these suppressed experiences then shape certain aspects of our personality. The result is that although we can create a very sophisticated personality aspect as a defense against strong inner expressions or hurtful situations from the outside, we are unable to evaluate the formation of personality from a long-term perspective. We put up a shield in front of ourselves for defense, or we put on a certain mask so that certain wounds on the soul are not visible. But we no longer address the fact that it is impossible to adequately live behind that shield, or that the mask being worn presents someone completely different from who we are in our essence. A fundamental pitfall in the constructed personality is that some aspects of personality in later phases of life may prevent us from connecting with our soul, with our deeper essence. It is therefore my assumption, although it is at first glance quite strange and illogical reasoning, that one of the most important tasks in a person's life is to transform the constructed personality at some stage in life, especially the unhealthy aspects of personality that prevent contact with the soul, and to build new ones. Therefore, personality holds a certain irreplaceable role in our lives, but should ideally serve for our benefit and growth, not inhibit it. Personality formation is naturally a highly complex and intricate process affected by many aspects. It is also suitable to note that the personality is not as homogeneous as it might seem. The personality is formed based on many aspects and impulses. These diverse impulses create equally diverse personality traits, so each of us possesses multiple diverse personalities based on various impulses, and every personality has its own requirements, desires, and fears. We can notice this in the moments when we feel as if we are torn. One part of us wants one thing and the other wants something else. Everything takes place within us, but this contradiction is created from two or more differing personalities build-ups within us. Maturity of the whole personality then occurs the moment we become aware of the primary personalities within us, listen to them, give them room to express themselves, and wholly idly explore the impulses on which these various personalities began to form. For example, we may discover that one of our personalities behaves very carelessly in some situations, and very anxiously and even obsessively in others. The careless one is a mask and can hide a lack of courage to deal with difficult life situations. A person begins to appear careless in front of himself and those around him, thus covering up the lack of courage. The anxious one was developed by the same person in childhood in order not to be punished by strict parents. In other phases of life, these two diverse parts of the personality can culminate in an inner contradiction and create the feeling that we don't understand ourselves. However, we can communicate with both of these personalities, listen to them, and fulfill the deeper feelings that were responsible for their creation. I also find it important to realize that both of these parts of ourselves function largely independently. First, let's describe the personality. Within our personality are hidden unconscious and subconscious patterns of behavior, reactions, and learned procedures how to respond to external stimuli without our conscious participation. For example, if some situation affects us in childhood, it shakes our soul, and this shock generates strong, possibly painful feelings. Somewhat unconsciously, we start to build up a complex personality aspect, usually a mask or defense mechanism of sort, which will help us handle the same situation better. And it is with this personality aspect that we will then react to the similar situation in the future. And the learned behavioral patterns, abilities, and procedures that this personality aspect contains will largely independently and reactively determine our behavior in similar situations in the future. And our soul, it does absolutely whatever it wants. In my concept, this means that we can control what is hidden deep within us, what themes we carry within ourselves, what emotional wounds our soul contains, what we are sensitive to, and so on. The soul does not consult it with us. What is inside wants out, period. We also can't influence where our soul is pulling us, what creates our interest in something, and conversely, what creates disinterest in something else. We don't have much say in this. We may disagree with it, we may not like it, we may try to suppress it, but that's about all we can do. Our soul behaves completely independently. What is contained in our soul is simply a deeper part of us, and it will tend to manifest itself outwardly, or pull us in a certain direction. And just as neglecting the body creates disease, a neglected soul creates emptiness in our hearts, inner pain, depression, and other inventive signals that force a person to concern themselves with their soul. So let's be aware of what is within us and pay attention to it. We will never escape ourselves. As I mentioned at the beginning, this introductory video is more of a theoretical background for further interpretation. We can argue about the various definitions, but the goal of this channel and my explanation is not to argue over terminology and create precise definitions and terms, but rather to present in a practical and illustrative way my understanding and view of the human being. And that is primarily my theory, which is based on the concept that we are not one big spiritual essence. Each of us has two basic spiritual components, deeper one and the more superficial one, and both have a completely different character and role. In the following episode, we will show many examples in which we will further explain these two components of us, and we will also further explain the relationship between them. So this was the first episode, and I invite you to watch the next one, where I will analyze emotional wounds or wounds to the soul.